Let's now take you to the live developments. President Cyril Ramaphosa in New York. Let's listen in.
And you've clearly been no exception as you've recently secured your next term as president. How should markets, global business leaders think about navigating an unprecedented year known as the global election year? And particularly for those of us in the room, this global election season we're about to embark upon.
Well, thank you very much, Ms. Lynn Martin, for welcoming me. Indeed, it is the very first time that I'm here. You asked me to sign your visitor's book.
Yes, but it's not going to be your last time here.
Yes. And I wrote a note that this place smells of money. And I left you with a message that I'd like some of that money to come to South Africa. We are truly honored, myself, my delegation of ministers and top officials in our government. And I see a number of business leaders who are also here, and I think there was one trade unionist who was also in our earlier meeting. He might well be here. So for us, this is a real honor. We have seen with a great deal of joy as a number of our home-based companies coming to list here, and that has given us the message that yes, we can also be global. We can also play in the international market. Indeed, this has been a year of a number of elections, and I think elections that have more or less touched the lives of well over close on to 2 billion people or so in the world. And we have had our own, where a number of South Africans participated. We've had a history where one party, my party, which has led government since Nelson Mandela's presidency for 30 years. And this year, the people of South Africa felt that they would like to have a government which we dub a government of national unity, where they would put a number of parties together to work together. We didn't get 50% plus one. My party got 40%, and another second party got 21%, and others got other percentages. And we felt, all of us collectively, that this was a clear message from the people of South Africa that we should work together. We should build a government of national unity, largely with a view of engendering growth, ridding our country of poverty and inequality, which are historical legacies. And having put the government together, I mean, we got 10 parties to coalesce and work together. We all signed a statement of intent, which puts right at the top the growth of the economy, creation of jobs, ridding our country of poverty and all that, and improving governance and focusing on a number of issues that will improve the lives of South Africans. That move has been so widely accepted by a majority of South Africans. Yesterday I had the honor of meeting the Secretary General of the United Nations, and the very first message was to congratulate me and South Africans for having set up a unity government. This is once again giving a very good precedent of how I believe political parties should navigate the way around the global challenges which you have alluded to, because the world faces enormous challenges and problems, and we have once again found a way of addressing those challenges by working together. We did that in 1994 when our people elected Nelson Mandela to be the very first president, we drafted an interim constitution that directed us to set up a government of national unity. It was time-bound, it came to an end, and over the years, the ANC, which is the main party, continued to have other parties involved in the executive of the country to govern with it. We have now consolidated it on a voluntary basis, believing very firmly that there's a great deal of value in working together rather than in pulling in different directions. I should say that this development has been welcomed by even business people in our country. The level of confidence has now gone up enormously, and ordinary people as well, in terms of addressing their social needs, are now feeling that we will be able to address those needs. So the message that we are beaming to the world is that see South Africa's step and development as something that can be emulated. It's something that other countries can accede to. We did it in 14 days, and I have come to know that a number of other countries, in terms of putting coalitions together, some have struggled to do it and went even over a year, almost 2 years. We, armed with the clear lessons from Nelson Mandela, were able to get people to work together to put this government of national unity in place. My delegation now includes ministers from other parties, and some of them were our sworn enemies to the death.
We know one or two things about that.
But today we have embraced one another, we're working together, and we are all amazed at the level of cooperation that has been engendered by the spirit that was initiated by Nelson Mandela. So it sort of propels us to move forward, and I think we are going to do amazing things, and that's what we would like to communicate to you, that South Africa is on the move. The government of national unity is precisely what we needed to do, and we are here to ask for your support and for you to egg us on that we should continue on this path. So thank you very much for being here.
14 days and some sworn enemies. There may be a white paper you could give to our incoming president as a path forward, maybe perhaps some advice along with the letter you will send to whoever takes office.
It will be a free service.
Fantastic. So you talked about growth and unity in South Africa and the way that such growth will continue to pull people out of poverty and spur on economic development. In the room, you have some business leaders,
yes.
You have some investors, you have people who have raised capital to change the world. How can we all play a role in fostering the economic development that you're hoping to see in South Africa?
Well, what I wrote in your visitor's book is precisely.
Aside from giving you some.
Precisely. As I was being driven here by people from the Secret Service, I asked both my protector and the driver whether they'd been here before. They said no, they've never been. So I said it makes the three of us. We were in the car. So I told them that I can smell money here, and I told them I'm going to urge the business people that I'm going to meet to look at South Africa anew. We are now in a new era. We are addressing the challenges that could have discouraged people to look at us as a very good investment destination. We are deeply honored that there are some 600 or so US companies that are invested in our market in one shape or form. I had an earlier meeting with some who said they've been here for in South Africa for many years. I know, for instance, General Electric would have been in South Africa for more than 100 years, and some of our key bankers here will know from South Africa how long some of those companies have been there. So we've been a good market for investments to a number of US companies. And over time, I mean, some of them may well have had their doubts about the trajectory that we were pursuing. But today, with my very first visit here, we are saying South Africa has embarked on a new journey. It's almost like a new life. Some of the US business were describing the path that we are on now, that this is a new chapter. And indeed it is a new chapter, and it's a chapter in which the pages talk about reforms. We've embarked on structural reforms, as Minister Tau was saying. Structural reforms that are meant to repair some of the damage that was done in the past few years, where there was neglect and where there was even corruption. And we're now repairing that, and we're straightening out our logistics sector, and we're straightening out another challenge which many businesses would have had, which is our energy sector. We've always had one state-owned energy generator, and we're restructuring that company now to allow other power generators, the private sector, to play a key role in our ports, and to play a key role in a number of other areas where the private sector can be of great boon to South Africa Inc. So we are becoming, I would like to believe, more and more of an investment destination. We've got, I would say, the biggest stock exchange on the African continent. Our financial regulatory framework is one of the best in the world, and we've got really good and effective capital markets. Our banking system is well regulated, and our governance system, in terms of what the Constitution prescripts that we should do in governing the country, is one of the best. We often say that we have the best constitution in the world, and we say that, and one of your judges did say that before she passed away, that the South African constitution is really a great constitution. Nelson Mandela bequeathed us a really good constitution, which in many ways we continue to adhere to. It enables us to have an independent judiciary, a free media, and a very good political system that dictates that even when the majority party has lost elections, it accepts that, and it invites others, and together they work together to advance the interests of our country. So the freedoms that South Africans did not have under the apartheid system, they now have. And they enjoy them, they exercise them, and they are able to take even the government to court and hope to win. And quite often they win. And human rights culture has become embedded in South Africa. And so there are those bells and whistles that you can imagine with regard to governance are in place. The business environment is also good, and it's improving. We are addressing issues such as the cost of doing business, of registering your business, and the regulatory environment. And we are moving forward with great speed. Minister Tau spoke about the reforms, also touching on things like visas and allowing even executives to come and do their business and work in South Africa from other countries. So all those matters are being addressed as part of our broad reform process, which is gaining momentum. And the other good thing with us, and I shut up now, is that we have found a magic that we were taught by, and I repeat his name again, Nelson Mandela, of working together. Not only between ourselves as political parties, but with role players, business, community-based organizations, labor, and as well as various sectors of government. So this is now our DNA, and that has stood us and continues to stand us in good stead as we address the challenges. So we are and are seen as the gateway into Africa. Many major companies have set up and are continuing to set up their operations in South Africa, wanting to utilize the Africa Continental Free Trade Area to launch their products and services into the rest of the continent. So we are a good place to be in from a business point of view. And if you are not, as a business person, you are really losing out, because others have been there for decades and decades. So come with me and join the club and be in South Africa. Thank you.
So, Mr. President, you talked about how your stock exchange is the largest on the continent. It is clearly thriving from a financial services perspective. However, other portions of the continent have had challenges, so to speak. What advice do you give to other leaders within Africa as to how to emulate the success of South Africa? And then the second part would be, how do external investors in other continents around the globe tap into all of the resources, the potential of Africa as a continent through South Africa, or whatever the case may be?
Well, we are one of the youngest democracies on our continent, having obtained our democracy in 1994, so we, in many ways, are newcomers to the family of nations on the African continent. And we've dealt with our own position with a great deal of respect to others, and also humility. We don't push our way around when we interface with other countries. We know that we are the most industrialized country on the continent, or economy on the continent. There are a number of endowments that we have, but what we have sought to do is, if you like to use soft influence, not even power, soft influence, and where a number of other countries see us as an example in a number of ways, either in terms of constitutionalism, respect for human rights, the creation of a good business environment, and also our foreign policy is rooted around respect for human rights and development, and sustainable development for that matter. So with that, I think we are able to gain the respect and the cooperation of a number of countries on the continent, and they do see us as a country they can emulate. And we don't drum that down on them, we don't force our way around. In deep cooperation, we work together with them, because that's how we are, that's what we were taught by our great leader. And so with that, they are also able to open up their markets for our companies to invest. And a number of our companies, some seated here, have got operations in various countries on the continent, and they are well welcomed because they come from South Africa. So much as we are a new democracy, and if you like, new country, we continue to enjoy the respect and the cooperation of a number of countries on our continent, and may I say also globally. People often say we punch way above our weight. We are a small country, very small economy, just 62 million South Africans, many of whom are poor, and they are bogged down by inequality, and they are bogged down by a legacy of not having been given an opportunity to have a good education because the past rulers, I call them misrulers of our country, decided then that they'll hold the majority of black people back, and they only did that at they advanced themselves and educated themselves and make themselves a lot wealthier by the continued exploitation of the majority. And we are slowly shedding that past. So we are seen by many as a country which continues to beam out really good messages to the others. At the social level, and I'll continue to the other part of the question you raised, we are the only country that has been able to make electricity, for instance, available to up to 93% of the population. Not many on our continent have been able to have that level of development. And of course, we want to assist them to get up to that level. So we are a good neighbor. We are a good partner to all our African sister countries. And we work very well with all of them. We are well accepted in various continental organizations, the African Union and many others. And so therefore, we would like the world to see Africa as a continent that is on the move. There are a number of institutions that say that Africa is going to be possibly the second fastest growing part of the world, and we sincerely believe that. And I think the population of Africa is by 2050 said to be well over 2 billion. We are now 1.4 billion, and we are a continent that's well endowed with young people who are hungry for education, many of whom are talented and who want to get opportunities. Much as there are areas on our continent that are still bogged down by wars and conflict, but the majority of African countries have embraced democracy. They are more and more embracing good governance and more ensuring that the people who live in their countries are well catered for, well cared for. And infrastructure development is expanding by leaps and bounds. So Africa is on the move, and I do believe that it is going to be a really good destination for businesses to invest in. A number of your businesses here are already seeing that, and it is a reality that we're on the move.
I have another advice question for you for our next administration.
Yes, ma'am.
So one of the things that I spend some time thinking about is the size of our own national debt in the U.S. And I know you've been very focused on developing, outlining a plan to reduce the cost of servicing the debt and instead focus on building infrastructure and services from a social and economic perspective. How do you approach that challenge? And can you please give that advice to whomever inherits our $36 trillion in debt as well?
Yeah. We are like many other countries around the world, bear quite a lot of debt. And to fund our development in a number of areas, we've had to raise debt. And we're spending quite a lot of money on servicing our debt. The debt servicing costs now are equal to what we spend on health and education, which is quite massive. Our debt to GDP is now around 73%. But with good fiscal policies, we're trying to hold that back and tame and reduce expenditure without obviously embarking on wild austerity measures that are going to harm the poor and the people of our country. It's a difficult balance to have. And when you do explain to people that the debt servicing costs are just rising and expanding, and it gets worse when, as a country, we are downgraded, and it gets worse when our revenue does not go up in the way that we want to. So all those then combine to just increase our debt servicing costs. So we are focusing on reducing our debt servicing costs, and in time, obviously, we would like to reduce also our debt, but we're focusing on economic growth so that our revenue collection can go up, because as our revenue collection goes up, then we are able to borrow less, and we are then able also to service our debt a lot better. And I do think that, and we know that the United States carries a huge burden of debt, but you are the largest economy in the world, and I guess much better off because your revenue collection is quite enormous, and we are a small economy, so we have to have a greater focus on ensuring that our debt levels do not rise exponentially, because the danger is always if your debt rises exponentially and your debt servicing costs far outweigh your revenue collection and spending money on your expenditure, you could have a debt crisis, and we don't want to fall into that. So our fiscal management has been quite effective in a number of ways, and our macroeconomic policy approach has been developmental, and we want to make it much more developmental so that we focus on growing the economy. And one of the reasons we're talking to all of you as business people is we want more and more investments to come in from the US and from a number of other markets, so that our economy can grow. So we here, yes, you could say, with an investment begging bowl and say, come and invest in South Africa so that we can raise our revenues and also reduce unemployment, which is the biggest problem that we have. Yeah.
Well, President Ramaphosa, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm hoping this is not the last time I will see you at 11 Wall, but it's certainly been an honor to host you for your first visit to 11 Wall.
Thank you.
Minister Tao, thank you for joining us today as well. Shall we go close the markets?
Yes.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.